Some places you visit out of curiosity, some because you're looking for something, answers, adventure, whatever it is that drives you to seek the unknown. Ravens Hollow School, we went there because we were looking for answers. Kids had gone missing, vanishing into thin air, and the town had no explanation. Only rumors, whispers of a teacher who practiced dark rituals, of students who were seen entering and never returning. At first we thought it was just a story. A tale spun to scare kids into staying away after hours. You know the type. Something to keep you from sneaking around, to keep you from doing something stupid. But when the rumors didn't stop, when the disappearances kept happening, it became hard to ignore. Something was off about Ravens Hollow, and we needed to know what it was. I didn't believe in ghosts. Not back then. I didn't believe in demons either. I didn't believe in anything I couldn't explain. But that was before we stepped into the school, before the doors creaked open and the air grew thick and suffocating. The building stood like a rotting monument to something long forgotten. Its crumbling brick walls sagged beneath the weight of years of neglect, vines creeping over the windows, choking the life from what was once a place of learning. The doors groaned in protest as we pushed them open, the stench of mold and mildew almost overwhelming. Every step we took echoed, the sound bouncing off the decaying halls as if the school was alive, listening to us. At first it felt like we were trespassing in a place long abandoned, but the air was heavy, as if something or someone was watching us. We moved cautiously, each of us feeling the tension in the air. I tried to shake off the unease that crawled up my spine, but it was impossible. Something wasn't right. The hallways were lined with empty classrooms. Desks lay overturned, chalkboards cracked and covered in a fine layer of dust. But then came the whispers, barely audible at first, like a soft breeze brushing past us. I paused, straining to listen. "Get out!" It was faint, almost a breath, but the voice was unmistakable. My skin crawled. We should have left, I knew that, but none of us spoke it out loud. Instead, we pressed forward, driven by the need to understand what had happened, what was happening inside these walls. We had to know. As we ventured deeper into the school, the smell of decay grew stronger, foul, rank, like something had been rotting for years. The floors groaned under our feet and the walls seemed to close in around us. The air felt heavy, thick, suffocating. I could barely breathe, like the atmosphere itself was pressing down on me. Then we found it. At the far end of the school, behind a door that had clearly been sealed for years, was a room unlike the others. The door was ajar, and as we stepped inside, a shiver of cold ran down my spine. The room was dark, even with the light from our flashlights, as if the darkness itself refused to be dispelled. On the walls, smeared in what I hoped was paint, were strange, jagged symbols that seemed to pulse with a life of their own, dark marks as if someone or something had etched them into the walls in desperation. The air in the room was thick with something otherworldly. It clung to us, heavy and oppressive. My breath caught in my throat as I stepped deeper inside, the floor beneath my feet creaking under my weight. That's when the door slammed shut behind us. I jumped, spinning around, but the door wouldn't open. We tried, but it was as if the very room itself had locked us in. The temperature dropped sharply, and I could see my breath, white and visible in the cold air. And that's when the shadows started to move. At first it was subtle, just a flicker out of the corner of my eye, but then they twisted, coiling and stretching like tendrils reaching for us. Faces began to form in the darkness, their eyes wide with terror, their mouths open in silent screams. The air was filled with an unbearable tension, a suffocating pressure that made it hard to think, to breathe. My friends were panicking, their ragged breath echoing in the oppressive silence. One of them, Jake, tried to grab the door again, but the shadows twisted, curling around his arms like tendrils of smoke. He screamed, pulling away, but something whispered in his ear, a soft, sweet voice that shouldn't have been able to exist in this place. It wasn't human. The voice lured him, beckoning him toward the dark corner of the room. I could see his face, contorted with fear, his body trembling, but his feet moved anyway, slowly, as if some force outside of himself was guiding him. The others tried to stop him, but they couldn't. I heard it too then, the voice, sweet and mocking, its tone dripping with malice. "Join us!" It wasn't just a voice, it was like the walls themselves were speaking, the school was speaking, the very ground beneath our feet was alive with it. I didn't know what happened to Jake after that. All I know is that he wasn't the same when we reached him. He was standing there, his eyes glazed, his body still, as if something had taken hold of him. It took everything I had to drag him back, to pull him away from whatever was calling him. But the school wasn't done with us. The shadows that had been lurking in the corners started to move toward us, swirling around us like a storm. The walls themselves seemed to breathe, exhaling the thick, foul air that made it impossible to think straight. I could feel something dark pushing against me, suffocating the life from me. We ran, but the school was alive. It shifted, the hallways stretching and twisting, turning back on themselves. Every door led us further in. The walls seemed to close in, like the building itself wanted to trap us inside. The whispers followed us, growing louder, a chorus of voices urging us to stay, to join them. We barely made it out. When we finally burst through the doors of the school, the sunlight felt like a shock, like we had been pulled from a nightmare into reality. We stood there, gasping for air, our hearts pounding in our chests. But we were different, hollow, as if the school had taken something from us, something that we couldn't get back. And the worst part, the voices didn't stop. They never stopped. What would you do if you found yourself trapped in a place like that, a place where the walls close in, where something dark is waiting to take you? What would you do if you knew there was no escape? We didn't talk about it much after that. None of us did. It was as if the memory of that place had planted something in us, a seed of fear that we couldn't shake, something that whispered to us in the quiet moments, reminding us that Raven's Hollow School still existed, waiting. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and follow us for more. Join us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Blue Sky for more bone-chilling chronicles. If you dare.